Evening and welcome to Radio Works World. My name's Gill Barham, the Miracle Molecule host, and today I am having a light-hearted conversation with the amazing marketing queen, Vee Roberts. Hello. Hello, Vee. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you doing?
I'm cool, thank you. So Vee is in her car. She's relying on her phone signal. So this could go really, really well or not quite so well. We'll just have to wait and see. But we're hoping that our light-hearted conversation. Yeah, fingers crossed indeed. So Vee, just before we start and we get into the detail of our conversation, would you mind sharing with us, please, a little bit about you, what you're passionate about, what you do? This is sort of a little bit of an insight, just in case, people don't know what you do.
Yeah, certainly. First of all, thank you for having me today on your show. Hopefully the signal will stick with us so that we can deliver this and give everyone some juicy content. My name's Vee Roberts, as you said, and I am running Insight to Marketing. I've been doing it now for just over 6 years, but I've actually been working with other companies and as an employee for 15 plus years before actually starting my own business. So what I actually do now is work with business owners who are stuck in their business. Maybe they need help with their branding, maybe they need help with marketing plans, or they may just want help with how to get started on social media. They will call on me or they will ask me for tips. And I'm not just someone that consults and gives advice. I also train. I also do coaching. So I do one-to-one coaching and group coaching. And I also speak internationally. So I've got a very mixed portfolio, and that I cover not just marketing, but also branding as well.
Okay, well, we met, was it 2 weeks ago now, I think?
Yes, I
think it was. Doesn't time fly? So I've been aware of you for some time, so it was really nice to actually meet you. And
yes.
I was really impressed by the range of services that you offer. So hopefully, I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about that at the end. But the major part of our conversation today is all about getting to know the Vee behind Insight to Marketing. Because people, on the basis that people won't buy from you or won't work with you until they know you, know, love and trust you, basically. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the basis of the show. So just to tell everybody, Vee's a bit nervous because she asked me what the questions were going to be and I didn't tell her.
I'm nervous, just like to get a hint of what I might be asked, but I don't mind being put on the spot.
Okay, so we're just going to go with the flow. I want you to be really honest and shoot from the hip, and we'll just get a bit of an insight into you. So here we go. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so this is my first question. So I'm going to paint a little scenario for you first of all. So Vee, you're in a really nice hotel, okay, and you've got into the lift on the bottom floor. One other person has got in the lift with you. And you're going up to your lovely executive suite room in the lift. And between two floors, the lift stops and breaks down. And you get a message to say, don't worry, it's all fine. We will be with you, but it's probably going to take us a couple of hours to get to you. But you're going to have lots of air and lots of oxygen. And there's windows in these lifts so that you're not going to feel claustrophobic. My question to you is, who is the person that got into the lift that you would most enjoy spending a couple of hours with? So anybody from history, from any walk of life, who would you love to spend 2 or 3 hours with to ask all the questions that you've ever wanted to know?
That is a very, very tricky question. Because I look up to a lot of people in terms of role models, musicians, people that have done good for, causes that are close to my heart. Who would I really want to have time with? Can I be controversial and say God?
That's not controversial.
I'd actually sit down and talk with Jesus, not God, with Jesus.
Jesus, not God. Yeah, I think that's probably I get that. I think that's a good choice. And what specifically would you want to know?
Well, I'm someone that really does believe that everything happens for a reason. So, you know, sometimes, although I am very passionate about, saying that, I do have circumstances where, for various reasons things happen, but I even myself question why they happen. And I have to look within myself to try and find the positive around certain situations and scenarios. For example, death, which is something that inevitably many of us experience, whether it's immediately within our families or, we know friends or people, loved ones that are outside of our immediate family that we're affected by, etc. That is a question that I would love to know. What happens beyond, when someone passes, and why, in fact, do we go through, if there is a God, why do we have to go through certain circumstances with people dying from things like cancer and the pain and, all the negative things that surrounds people going through long illness before they die. A bit morbid, I know, but that would be one of my biggest questions, because in situations where people do pass, I'm still the one that will always say, remain positive and, think about all the good times. But actually, if it was me, I don't know how comforting I would find that. And that would be one of my questions. Why are we given those kinds of challenges in our lives? So it's a bit of a religious question, I guess. But yeah, I like to think I'm a very positive person.
Well, it's interesting.
Sit down and answer that question.
It's interesting, isn't it, that depending on what you believe and where you are in your kind of spiritual journey, and I would have said a year ago that I wouldn't have even really had a conversation with you about it, because I wouldn't have said that I was a spiritual person at all. But now, through my own journey over the last year, and understanding that we actually, in the same sense that we manifest illness, we manifest wealth, we manifest happiness, we manifest illness by what we think. And so it would be really interesting for Jesus, because the one thing about Jesus that, as I understand, is that the way that he influenced people, that the kind of oh my God, he's walking, that kind of that ability that he had was my understanding of it, is that he never saw the bad or the illness in people, that he actually, his skill was just accepting people for the complete person that didn't need fixing. So it's quite an interesting thing that he kind of didn't enter into the conversation about, well, what happens or whatever. It's because it's really about what is now, and actually the fact that we are just a physical being that actually is still either side of us being on this earth for 50 years or 5 years or 600 years or whatever, or 80 years or whatever it is that actually before and afterwards that we are a spiritual being anyway, and that this is just us being here physical for now, but actually we do exist at the same time. So that's becoming my kind of knowledge about it. But so it'd be really interesting to understand from him whether he sees himself as a healer, or whether he sees himself as the savior, if you like, or whether or not indeed he would answer to you, well, I just saw that people didn't need fixing. I just see the good and the perfection in everybody. So
that would be one of the questions I was asked, because I know that many of the people around me have lost friends and family. I mean, even myself, I've also lost friends and family to causes like cancer, and ongoing problems. And that's the one thing that baffles me around everything happening for a reason and trying to see positive in it, So well,
I think from a health perspective and understanding and gaining understanding in the years that I've been working, is that we have a very, I think the principal thing to do with illness is actually stress. At the end of the day, it's stress. It all comes back to stress, and whether that stress that you had in your childhood that you don't even remember, whether it's perceived stress in your life that you have, or unperceived stress in your life, stress from a situation, from the food that you eat, from your self-talk, or it all really comes down to the body being under stress, and that stress causing inflammation, which is the root of all dis-ease, if you like.
Yeah.
So, my biggest thing to anybody that said, well, I want to live a healthy and happy life. And I have another show called The Vitality Show where we talk about all of these issues in more detail. Is, the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is to remove or counteract or buffer the stress that we all have. We can't stop having stress in our lives because we live in this world where we want to be, achieving, and we need to be out with all the pollution and those kind of stresses and all the aspects of stresses. But what you do need to be able to do is to put things into your body that counteracts the effect of it. Because if you don't, that's when that domino effect of a stressful life creates this free radical damage. And there's a point at which, like dominoes, it builds and it builds and it builds. And then all of a sudden it's just too much, and it's a domino effect, and they all go. And then you're kind of out of control. That's the way I understand it. Okay. So, Jesus then, right now, so you're in the lift with Jesus. I'm not sure how he'd cope with being in a lift, to be honest. That would be a bit scary, wouldn't it? But I am going to give you the opportunity, because you and Jesus were on your way to lunch, and I want you to be able to make sure that you enjoy a really nice meal with him. So I'm going to supply you with a lovely tablecloth and beautiful cutlery and crockery and all the rest of it. And I'm going to magic you up. I know you have children, so like Harry Potter at the feast, I'm going to magic you up some food and some lovely drinks. So what would you share? What lovely meal? In other words, what meal and food do you really enjoy? What would you share with Jesus?
Something to do with cheese.
Cheese.
Probably be something to do with cheese, and maybe vegetarian, something vegetarian, and something with cheese in it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else?
I need to drink more water, and I know you'll love me saying that, but I do really need to drink more water. So I'm not going to say water, unfortunately, because that would be a cheesy answer. Probably some apple juice.
Apple juice, okay.
Yes.
I know you're a sweet girl. Would you like some sort of pudding? Would you do
cheesecake?
Cheesecake. You're a cheese freak.
I am, yes, cheesecake.
Who knew? Vee Roberts is a cheesecake freak, a cheese freak. Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that Jesus would love cheese too. All right, so my next thing I'm going to ask you is, I'd like to know a little bit, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, a little bit about what the 18-year-old Vee was doing. So where was Vee at 18? Where was she living? What was she doing? What were you passionate about? What was going on at 18?
18, I just had my daughter, actually, because I was a teen mum. So I was living in a temporary flat in South London. And I was studying. I was doing my degree, and was I also working? Yes, I was. I think I was working at the time at
wow.
Where was I working then? 18. I was working. Let me get this right. At 18, I finished college, but I started with the Open University. So that was before I went to uni. Let me take that back. And I was living in temporary accommodation. But I was working also for Barclays Bank. So I was doing insurance services with Barclays Bank, a bit of telesales.
Okay, cool. And were you into music at the time? What were you listening to at 18?
Bit of everything. I was just saying this today to my next door neighbour, actually. I listen to all types of music, so I don't have a particularly favourite radio station or genre of music. I grew up on lots of different types of music: classical, rock, gospel music, R&B, soul, reggae.
What was around when you were 18? Can you remember anything that was around that stuck out for you when you were 18?
In terms of music?
Yeah.
18. No, it's so long ago. it's so long ago, honestly.
You're probably singing nursery rhymes to your daughter, of course.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so now take us to the 35-year-old Vee. What were you doing by then?
35.
Oh, she's gone quiet. We've lost you, Vee. Oh dear, we've dropped Vee. Okay, so just while Vee reconnects, I want to just give you, the listener, a bit of an idea as to the premise for this show, basically, if you've never seen it before. So there's a show in the UK called Desert Island Discs, which is the longest running show on Radio 4. And on that show, they give the participant the opportunity to choose 8 tracks of their years, basically. So 8 music tracks of their years. And they talk about them, those tracks, kind of in the context of their life. So they would choose things maybe that influenced them when they were a child and then at various stages of their lives. And this brought out, or brings out, the kind of personality of the person that is being interviewed by a lady called Kirsty Young, by the way. And also they are then sent to a virtual island where they are allowed to take a copy of the Bible and Oxford English Dictionary. I think they're allowed to take that with them as well. And then they're allowed to choose one luxury, but that luxury can't get them off the island. So they can't choose an aeroplane or something. And then they have to pick one of the 8 tracks that they've talked about throughout the program. So what I wanted to do, and what I love that program because it gives you an insight to how the real person behind whatever it is they do, and you end up listening to people that you've never known before. So Vee's calling me. Hi Vee, I'm still live. I'm waiting for you to reconnect. Oh, here she is. Won't connect you back. Oh no. So Vee is saying that it won't connect her back. So I think we're probably going to have to reschedule our call, which is a massive shame. And maybe next time we'll try and get her into a building so that we can ask her the rest of our interesting questions. So I'm sorry for the fact that we've had to stop the show today. I'm on again at 3 o'clock. Now, please watch at 3 o'clock because the gentleman I have on at 3 o'clock is an absolute hero of mine. He is a past president of the American Herbalist Association. He is an iridologist. He is a massive influence in the way that I have scheduled or determined the way that I work with my clients in terms of building health rather than treating symptoms effectively. And he's a really fascinating man. He lives in the US. I'm not quite sure what time of day it'll be at 3 o'clock over there. So please make sure that you watch us at 3 o'clock because this is going to be a great show. So I'll see you there, and we're going to catch up with Vee later on. We'll do another show. Thanks for watching.